guys, it's Lotus and welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to continue on with our read-along of Guardian. Let's jump right into it. Chapter 39. The Ghost Slayer sits down in place, and a moment later, he recovers his usual composure. The All of Mountains and Rivers has been standing here for thousands, possibly millions of years. The girl said Sangzan cleared the stone tablet on the altar, so logically, the spirits imprisoned within should have been freed. I didn't expect... Ghosts normally cannot cry. These ghosts were screaming and wailing at the risk of shattering their own souls. Neither of us can withstand the force of their weeping. Even mountains could crumble. Zhao Yunlan puts his hands behind his back and stands behind him in silence. The Ghost Slayer says, "This is rather surprising." Before Zhao Yunlan can reply, his revealing mirror flashes and a sudden rush of white bursts out, lunging towards the all with determination. But Wang Zheng doesn't get far. Her body hasn't even left the watch entirely when a transparent string like spider silk suddenly springs from Zhao Yunlan's hand and tightly secures her in place. Wang Zheng freezes for a moment. She looks back, and they lock eyes with each other. Wang Zheng's eyes are brimming with tears, but she can't cry due to the talisman on her. Zhao Yunlan shows no emotion, appearing quite unreasonable. "You ran away once on my watch. If I let you run away a second time, I might as well chop my head off and give it to you as for a football," he said coldly. Wang Zheng silently retreats a bit, the spider silk still restraining her. Zhao Yunlan glares at her, and Wang Zheng instinctively lowers her head in alarm. Eventually, the Ghost Slayer gently pulls him back and advises calmly, "Guardian, compose yourself. It's best not to get angry." Zhao Yunlan looks at him. He can reprimand his staff all he wants, but he has to show the Ghost Slayer some respect. So, he says to Wang Zheng, as calmly as he can, "Do you think if you sacrifice yourself to the All of Mountains and Rivers, you can appease the spirits? I don't get it. Do you really think sincerity is the key to success, or do you just want to become a ghost snack?" At first, he kept his tone down, but he gets angrier and eventually yells, "Are you effing stupid?" The red line around Wang Zheng's neck grows brighter, and the talisman on her forehead flickers as she trembles. Her appearance is almost comical, like a silly zombie girl from a third-rate horror movie. But nobody is laughing. Zhao Yunlan stops yelling. He has finally vented all of his anger and begins to calm down. He sits down beside the Ghost Slayer on the ground and mercifully says to Wang Zheng, "You, sit too." The binding silk swivels in the air and transforms into a silvery chair, just big enough for one person to sit on. Perhaps too much has happened in Wang Zheng's life and afterlife. She doesn't have the unrestrained exuberance of the ethnic minorities in the Northwest. She always seems depressed, silent, and withdrawn. Her dark hair hangs unmoving down beside her cheeks. With much effort, Zhao Yunlan finally manages to speak in a mild tone. "There are some things that outsiders can easily guess the whole truth about. Do you know why that is?" Wang Zheng quietly raises her eyes. Zhao Yunlan sighs. "Because it's gonna happen no matter what. It's fate. You cannot stop fate." Wang Zheng mutters, "You know?" "I just understand people like Sanzang," Zhao Yunlan says. "For centuries, his people had been enslaved. Old people would die with their children still in servitude. Nobody had ever dared to rebel. He was the first ever, so he must have felt great indignation. Such a brave, extraordinary man, he must have been fearless even in death. But he could not let anyone hurt his pride. And a man's pride has nothing to do with riches and fame. A man's most basic pride lies in being able to protect his wife and children, and provide those he loves with a stable life, right?" As the Ghost Slayer hears this, he can't help but ask, "Is this also the case for the Lord Guardian?" "I cannot control fate." Zhao Yunlan cannot think of a reason why the Ghost Slayer would want to discuss something as trivial as this, so he just says, "But if someone willingly and devotedly follows me, takes care of me and worries about me, and I can't even protect them, then what kind of garbage am I? Would I deserve to be called human?" The Ghost Slayer hides his hands in his sleeves and clenches his fists out of sight. He struggles to control his emotions. Eventually, he says in a low voice, "The Guardian has a deep sense of love and righteousness. One wonders what kind of person might have the honor to receive his feelings." "Huh?" Zhao Yunlan is stunned by the compliment. It certainly sounds strange coming from the Ghost Slayer. He laughs. "Oh, don't flatter me, Your Honor. I'm getting goosebumps." The Ghost Slayer laughs lightly, but doesn't reply, and only says, "For the sake of his tribe, Sangzan bore a terrible crime, desperate to let his people live in equality and prosperity. And he succeeded. He made his seemingly unattainable wish a reality, but he cannot have anticipated what followed. Zhao Yulan says, "If I were him, and the person I loved died at the hands of the people I freed, under the rules I set, I would hate those people more than I hated the old tribe leader." More than that, the Ghost Slayer looks up and stares at the towering all through the smokescreen he had created. He says softly, "Not even hacking them to pieces with 1,000 knives would ease the hatred." There is an airy chill in his voice. Wang Zheng senses it and moves a little closer to Zhao Yulan. Zhao Yulan asks, "Did Sang Zan see your execution?" Wang Zheng shakes her head. "They put him under house arrest. That girl's father said I had bewitched him and it was for his own good." Zhao Yulan thinks for a moment. "So, Sang Zan collected and hid your body?" Wang Zheng nods. "So, when you said you wanted to come back for your body and to be properly buried, that was a lie?" Wang Zheng drops her head, and after a while, she nods. Zhao Yulan frowns at her for a moment, then he looks away and says stiffly, "Don't let there be a next time." The Ghost Slayer sees that his attitude has softened and interjects, "And then Sang Zan put your body into the water?" Wang Zheng takes a deep breath and says after a moment of silence, "Yes, our tribe believes that the mountains represent imprisonment and suppression, whereas the rivers represent 1,000 miles of light and freedom. When slaves or criminals died, they would be beheaded in the mountains. When royalty died, their bodies would be washed down the rivers. Sang Zan dug up my head in the night and stole my body that was waiting for cremation. He took the head of the girl who died accidentally and swapped the two bodies. Then, he sewed my head and body together and placed me into the girl's shroud next to the river. He held me and cried all night. The next day, he watches the people wash my body down the stream." She raises her head and runs her fingers softly across the red line around her neck. The stitches are tightly sewn. Normally, it would appear frightening. Now, it just feels heart-wrenching. How did he feel when he was washing her face, when his fingers ran across her dead and pale profile, and when he had to sew her head and body together? And perhaps he never got the chance to tell her his true feelings that he always kept hidden. How terribly ruthless time is. Just a single hesitation, and what you have is gone. You'll be left heartbroken, and there will be no turning back. The two men beside her are silent, lost in their own thoughts. "The river bore my body away, but I never left," Wang Zheng says. "I watched him, and he became another person. Originally, 3 people took turns to initiate voting among the tribe. Sang Zan, the man who caused my execution, and a respected elder. Sang Zan married the granddaughter of the elder, and they worked together to frame the third. 2 years later, the people voted for his execution." Zhao Yulan takes out a cigarette and sniffs it. "Another year went by. The elder passed away. Everyone thought he died of old age, but I saw Sang Zan poisoning him." Wang Zheng's eyebrows twitch, as if she cannot believe the truth. Poison is a coward's weapon. How did a brave warrior become a cunning villain using poison in secret? "Then it was his wife and his son who was still learning to walk. His own flesh and blood." Wang Zheng's translucent fingers clutch at her wispy white dress. "Every person he killed, he would secretly behead, bury their heads at the mountaintop, and put a rock in their corpse bags so that their bodies would sink to the bottom of the river instead of floating away. Eventually, nobody in the tribe could oppose him anymore, and they all followed him under the illusion that they were making decisions out of their own free will. He became the new leader. An all-powerful leader who only wanted to destroy the tribe. When internal conflict arose, Sang Zan would suppress it on the surface, but stoke the fires of uproar behind the scenes. The once brave and righteous young man became a self-taught schemer. The young man who held the body of his lover and wept for an entire night became cold-blooded and dangerous. Just as the dancing and singing people who only wanted to live a good life had all raised their hands and chopped off the head of an innocent girl, and even wished for her soul to be enslaved forever. 15 years after my death, civil war broke out again. The tribe turned against each other and divided into 2 forces. This war was even more brutal than the last. Corpses filled the valley, bloody children weeping next to them. Vultures circled the air, attracted by the smell of death. But they didn't swoop down, because Sang Zan led the rest of the people to the ritual site and started a fire. Standing in the flames, he pulled the switch under the stone tablet. Wang Zheng says softly, "The stone tablet he'd once cleared had everyone's names engraved onto it again. The flames burned for a long time, scorching the entire valley. Only the all of mountains and rivers stood tall, like a pillar of shame." the 10,000 ghosts weren't wailing without reason. End of chapter 39. So, to recap, we find out what happened after Wang Zheng had been beheaded by the tribe. Sang Zan went crazy in his grief and tried to destroy the tribe that he had helped to free. He ended up using cunning tactics to frame others and also to become a tyrant. And then he eventually tricked everyone and then committed a mass genocide against his own tribe because he felt that life wasn't worth living anymore without his beloved. So, yeah, that's a lot to take in, and I bet Wang Zheng feels really, really guilty about this as well because, I mean, she was murdered by this tribe when she herself was innocent, but at the same time, I don't think she wanted her lover, Sang Zan, to turn on his own people and kill them as well. So she's probably feeling really guilty, and she's probably here to find his body, to free his soul, and probably to free the others that are trapped here. So let's continue reading. Chapter 40. Without sympathy, Zhao Yunlan interrupts her tragic reminiscence and rubs his palms. No more talk about that past crap. What do we do now? The Ghost Slayer is silent. Wang Zheng moves her lips and is about to speak, but Zhao Yunlan points at her and says, I didn't ask you. You keep your mouth shut. The all of mountains and rivers suppresses souls and spirits. Not only the souls of those who died unjustly, but any soul imprisoned within will eventually become resentful. The Ghost Slayer ponders and says with composure, in my view, there aren't many options available. Either destroy this sacred artifact or forcefully suppress the souls within. His words are quite subtle. Wang Zheng asks, bewildered, Your Honor, what do you mean by that? Zhao Yunlan says, he means that if we can't blow up the all, he'll have to slay all of the souls inside and shatter them into pieces to avoid future trouble. Wang Zheng covers her mouth with her hand. The Ghost Slayer shakes his head. Execution without reason is unjust. Then the only option left is to blow up the all of mountains and rivers. The three are silent. Zhao Yunlan sits on the ground and idly plays with his lighter. Suddenly, he stares at the little flame and says to the Ghost Slayer, Now I remember, on our way up to the mountain, we met an underworld guard with a lantern, on the road right outside Clearstream Village. How could he not know what happened here, and just pass by the all of mountains and rivers like nothing? The Ghost Slayer says, He was leading hundreds to the afterlife. He will have had other things on his mind. Zhao Yunlan looks at him suspiciously, but he hides his doubts and continues. The 4 mystical artifacts have been missing for a very long time, scattered on Earth. Your Honor, why are you collecting them only now? Last time, we came across the sundial by chance, but this time, you probably came for the all on purpose, didn't you? The Ghost Slayer instantly realizes his carelessness and remains silent. This man is too smart. No matter how foolish and unreliable he seems on the outside, he is merely hiding his overly sharp mind. Whatever happens, it seems he can always find a hole in a story. Zhao Yunlan doesn't let him get out of this easily. Looking at his wide sleeves, he points out, Your sleeves still have bloodstains, Your Honor. I'd never heard of demon beasts before, and now they appear together with the sundial? The underworld wouldn't say anything about them. What are they, really? They couldn't have appeared out of thin air, so where did they come from? And the mystical artifacts. People have found them, people have fought for them to the death, haven't they? Why would you let the artifacts stay on Earth for so long? The Ghost Slayer has always been the interrogator, never the interrogated. He stays silent for a long time, struggling to find a suitable explanation. Finally, he says very politely, Forgive me for being unable to tell you. Lying to someone like Zhao Yunlan is basically making a fool of oneself. It's better to just say frankly, I know why, but I just don't want to tell you, than to go to the trouble of making up some nonsense. Zhao Yunlan lights another cigarette and inhales deeply. Nobody knows what he's thinking. After a while, he really stops asking questions. Instead, he stands up and takes out his empty cigarette box. He takes out the layer of mud with the octagon on it and asks Wang Zheng, What does this mean? Does it mean the all of mountains and rivers and Hanga symbols? Wang Zheng ponders. When I was little, my father taught me that this means mountain, and a circle around it means water. Your dad didn't lie to you, did he? Zhao Yunlan asks. Didn't your illiterate tribe have another symbol for mountain? Luckily, Wang Zheng is well-tempered. She remains calm and doesn't want to punch the chief at all. She explains, The octagon represents the sacred mountain specifically, which is where the all of mountains and rivers is located. This place used to be a forbidden site, and only the tribe leader could enter. Zhao Yulan frowns. But there's no water around this mountain. Wang Zheng hesitates. It's been so many years. Perhaps the terrain has changed. Zhao Yulan disagrees. That's impossible. If a circle around the octagon represents water around a mountain, that's understandable. But it can't just mean water. Hanga script isn't usually this ambiguous. Wang Zheng stares at Zhao Yulan dumbly. She's always thought that although the chief is a nice guy, he's probably not the hard-working type. But in only a few days, he's already come to know the Hanga tribe so well. Zhao Yulan raises his head and looks towards the All. The souls and spirits of the mountains and rivers. The Hanga use the All of mountains and rivers to perform Lobula restriction magic for God knows how many generations. They must have known something deeper. If water burial can prevent a soul from being trapped by the All, then it's very peculiar that the circle around the octagon represents water. The Ghost Slayer follows his train of thought. The mountain does not move. Flowing water does not decay. The Guardian is suggesting that water might be the All's weakness? Zhao Yulan laughs. Why not give it a try? The Ghost Slayer stands up, and Zhao Yulan motions at Wang Zheng as if calling a dog. He knocks on his watch impatiently. Wang Zheng's silhouette flashes towards it and vanishes. The Ghost Slayer retracts the smoke screen and points at the snow. The layer of snow around the All of mountains and rivers rapidly starts melting, and a stream of water soon surrounds the All. And indeed, the trembling All miraculously calms down, menacingly silent like a temporarily appeased madman. This time, the Ghost Slayer doesn't dare rush ahead. He stands outside the stream's perimeter, watching the All's reaction. As he keeps gesturing, more and more snow begins to melt. Streams grow among the freezing mountains, flowing faster, emerging from the thick layer of snow and swiveling towards the All of mountains and rivers like snakes. Zhao Yulan hears a hum. He heard it as soon as the smoke screen was lifted, but at first he thought the All was still having an effect on him. Now, though, he seems to hear a stuttering voice amidst the hum. Not yet old, but ravaged. He has a familiar feeling, like the sudden rush he felt after the earthquake the other day. Zhao Yulan listens to the voice closely, and shortly he becomes mesmerized. He inadvertently repeats what he hears, murmuring, Rock, not yet old but ravaged. Water, not yet cold but frozen. Body, not yet lived but dead. Soul, not yet burned but dispersed. The Ghost Slayer abruptly turns his head towards Zhao Yulan. His face is hidden, but his gaze seems to stab right through him. Zhao Yulan quickly regains consciousness and rubs his forehead vigorously. He suspects that he must be oversensitive and having illusions. He feels like the All of mountains and rivers is trying to connect with him and lure him in. As he lowers his head, he sees a flash of white light reflecting off the snow, and a man emerges out of thin air behind the Ghost Slayer. A huge axe slams down towards the back of his head. Since entering the valley, Zhao Yulan has never let go of the gun in his pocket. At the speed of light, he pulls it out, claps his hand on the Ghost Slayer's shoulder, and pulls the trigger without blinking. Through the silencer, the bullet hits the man right in the forehead. At the same time, the Ghost Slayer turns around in a pitch-black cyclone, and his blade meets the giant axe with a screeching noise. They both stumble backwards, and Zhao Yulan sees that the person with the axe is wearing a pale ghost mask. A dark liquid oozes from the bullet hole in his forehead. Zhao Yulan looks at the Ghost Slayer, then back at the person. He's confused. He has never heard of anyone like that before. The ghost face raises his hand and wipes the black blood off his forehead. The pale ghost mask turns towards Zhao Yulan, and the painted face slowly twists into an eerie smile. Lord Guardian. A muffled voice comes from beneath the mask. It's been 1,000 years, and you haven't changed a bit. Zhao Yulan is slightly uncomfortable with this way of meeting an old acquaintance. The eyebrows on the mask droop down, the face now half smiling, half crying, and the ghost face continues. The Guardian wasn't so merciless to me before, but it doesn't matter. No matter how you treat me, your kindness in sharing the fire, even 100 deaths. The Ghost Slayer interrupts, his blade slashing down in a blinding arc, hacking the air with a screeching howl. Although Zhao Yulan has no clue who's who here, he quickly dodges aside so that he doesn't become collateral damage of two gods dueling. He has never seen the Ghost Slayer so furious. Wang Zheng's voice comes from his wristwatch. Chief Zhao, who's that? With a cigarette in his mouth and both his sleeves pulled over his hands, Zhao Yulan crouches down, observing the wretched action, and says sullenly, How would I know? It's not like I know everyone. Don't tell me I look like a guy who sleeps around. If Wang Zheng were a little bolder, she would probably have replied, "Can you be any more shameless?" Unfortunately, she's naturally gentle and reserved, so she replies with silence. Zhao Yulan leisurely watches the battle for a while, feeling like he's watching an action film. He twists out his cigarette in the snow and breathes into his hands to warm them, rubbing his freezing palms together. Rock, not yet old, but ravaged. Water, not yet cold, but frozen, he says, and knocks on the watch. Don't say anything. I just thought of something to try. Wang Zheng worries what kind of crazy idea he might have. Chief Zhao! Chief Zhao! Zhao Yulan ignores her and takes out a bunch of keys from an old key fob in the shape of a book. It's covered with weathered patterns, and there's a cursive G for Guardian engraved on its back. Inside, the book is hollow. Holding the keys, he walks towards the olive mountains and rivers. Suddenly, a few demon beasts emerge from the ground and surround him menacingly. They don't attack, but merely block his way to the all. Zhao Yulan stretches lazily and drawls. Oh, I get it. So he's the master. You guys took the sundial. But what do you want with the 4 artifacts? The demon beasts don't reply and move one step closer to scare him away. Zhao Yulan laughs coldly and takes out a cigarette. He opens the little book-shaped key fob. Inside isn't a family photo, but a tiny ball of fire, like a miniature lighter. He uses it to light the cigarette in his hand. Zhao Yulan snaps the little book closed, but he doesn't start smoking. He holds the cigarette with 2 fingers and sighs. There are 2 things I hate the most in my life. Ugly goons and disobedient dogs. You guys are quite the full package, and you're really getting on my nerves. The cigarette in his hand flies out like a small firecracker, then bursts into a giant long-tailed ball of flames, arching towards the demon beast like a raging meteor. One of the beasts screams, "Samadhi True Fire!" as they're sucked into the inferno. The fire of the Bifang bird is one of a kind. It burns them into ashes in a matter of seconds. Zhao Yulan smiles in the light of the blaze. What? True fire? Fake fire? Haven't you morons heard of the king of secret weapons? What we humans call skyrockets? The skyrocket rushes towards the base of the all. End of chapter 40. Okay, so to recap this chapter, they're trying to figure out how to go about this. They can either destroy the all, which is one of the 4 artifacts, or they can slay all of the spirits within. Now, both Zhao Yulan, Wang Zheng, and the Ghost Slayer don't really want to have to slay all of these tormented spirits, and so they decide, okay, we're gonna have to destroy the all. Now they're trying to figure out how to do that. When looking at a diagram, they seem to figure out that it is potentially plausible, that water may be the weakness to the all, and lo and behold, they are correct. The Ghost Slayer melts the snow around the base of the mountain, and the all suddenly quiets and kind of goes dormant. So, you know, they plan to go and destroy it, but as they're about to do that, this new person comes into the picture, the Ghost Face, who's the one behind all of those demon beasts, and they seem to want the artifact as well. They're the one that stole the sundial, and they seem to want to collect the all of mountains and rivers as well. The Ghost Face also seems to have a bit of a history with the Lord Guardian, although Zhao Yulan doesn't seem to recognize him. So who is this Ghost Face? Is he friend or is he foe? He seems to be foe, and the Ghost Slayer doesn't seem to be really keen on this guy's interruption. So we'll have to keep reading to find out who the Ghost Face is. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed today's read-along, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye!